Hi guys, welcome to the 11th episode of Score Couch, podcast in which we talk about technology ranging from software development, UX UI design, and all of the things related to digital. Today I'm going to talk with Piotr Wegner, co-founder and CTO of Stamper, an extraordinary loyalty platform. Hi Piotr.
Hi.
Great to have you here on Score Couch. Why don't we start with you telling us who you are, what do you do, a little bit about your background yourself.
Okay, so I'm Piotr Wegner. I'm co-founder and CTO at Stamper, where I'm responsible for all the technical aspects of the product development, and also I'm responsible for finding the best solutions for our customers, where we are building dedicated applications, integrations, these kind of things. So in general, I'm responsible for all the technology that we use in the company.
So it seems that you are on the totally opposite side of where am I? So no non-technical guy talking with a technical guy. My role is lovely here, as always. Great to have you here. So today we are going to talk a bit about mobile and website or web app, or what are the differences, what are the similarities, and so on.
Yeah, so in terms of differences between mobile applications and websites, I would say that it can be very similar and it can be very different, depending on the type of the application we are talking about and needs for customers and the specific implementation. For example, if we think about applications like that are not utilizing any storages, external storages, databases that are implemented only on the mobile phone, so it functions only on the mobile phone. If you want to, for example, edit an image, you probably will use only functions and functionality of the phone itself. And if you compare it to the website or to the web application, it will be totally different because the technology and the device itself is different. If you compare system that, for example, booking system for airlines, where we have a mobile application and a whole system that is stored on servers, it interacts with databases, it stores files on the stores in the cloud, then it can be very similar because the application itself will be just a presentation layer for the whole system. So the mobile application and the website will interact with the same server. Most of the time, it's the same system, the same APIs that will return some data from databases. And as I said, it depends if we are thinking about something that is purely utilizing the device and sometimes even features of the device like cameras, tracking, payments, or fingerprints to log in. Then the mobile development and web development will be different.
Yeah, that's true. So, for me, this is super interesting because we are right now, I think, in a world in an industry that is changing very rapidly, and at the same time, the choices that you may undertake at the very beginning of your journey, let's say, with building digital product, can affect your business greatly, because you can go cross-platform, you can have a web app plus mobile app, you can have all native, you can have, web app that will be responsive, so progressive web app, for example, right? So you can pick different solutions for what you want to do. But the question is, how do you assess what do you need?
I think the answer will be based on your requirements, and to find a good answer, companies or people that have some sort of ideas and want to develop something, they start from the discovery phase or some sort of workshops with digital agencies, where they can discuss the ideas with technical team. Because during these workshops or discovery phase, you have in the same room a lot of people with different experiences and skill sets, from technical skill sets, analytic skill sets, business skill sets, so they can help you to find and suggest the best solution, and also sometimes show you that there are things that you need to rethink or make sure that this is what you really want. And these workshops are very useful. And it usually happens before you even start working on a project or start developing, working on as a software developer on code.
Okay, so workshops, but I'm sometimes having discussions like, but why do I need a workshop? My brother-in-law told me that the .NET is the way to go because he's a .NET developer and this is the best technology for everything. Why would you want to convince me otherwise? So these are the discussions that sometimes I'm having.
That's why, yes, it's difficult to maybe not convince customers, but to discuss that this is a need for them before they even start thinking about estimating, or even the digital agency starts estimating the project, putting price and effort to it, because you need to really break down the whole project into small pieces to make sure that everything you put them into a budget will be there. And most of the agencies, after the workshops, they can say, okay, the client will then make a decision whether they want to implement this MVP. They will have the priority one tickets, items that it must be there, otherwise the system will not work. There are items that are less important, but it's good to have, nice to have for the customers. And based on that, they can estimate and make sure that building MVP and then additional features will be at some point in the future. In terms of technology, the workshop is the answer actually, because then you have people from different technologies, using different technologies, or lead developer, system architect, that will have experience that's needed to make sure that, okay, if we are building a mobile application, we need this type of solution. If we want to use then a web access to the system, like a booking system for airlines, then we need servers and APIs that are flexible. We need to have servers and store it in a cloud in a flexible way, so we can then adjust the power of the system based on usage. And also, if there is integration, because this is also a need, for example, .NET and different frameworks and languages are also kind of required based on the integration you need to implement. So if the customer already has some sort of systems you need to integrate a new system with, then maybe technology will be chosen based on the existing system and the flexibility of these integrations.
Yeah, so this is also very important. So like thinking about the whole landscape that we are going to interact with, let's say, because I think that, just in one of the previous episodes, I spoke with the quality assurance engineer, and he told me that, taking into account a lot of different aspects, ranging from type of devices that users will be using to, the versions of the systems even, right? That can, be dependable on iOS. It's simpler, right? With Android, not so much. But there are a lot of aspects that you need to take into account from the angle of quality assurance. Also from your user perspective, you are mentioning something different. So, let's say the third-party integrations that you might need to do in the context of your business, which is very important. But from a business person perspective, I want to build a product. I don't know a lot about stuff that you've just mentioned. How do you prepare for the workshop? What would be your recommendation for such a person to be prepared for that? What do you need to have in order to not succeed, but at least improve your chances?
In terms of preparing a business person to workshops, I would say that they definitely need to break down the whole the stories in a way that from the user perspective. They shouldn't think about technology because technology will be suggested or choosing for them. From the business perspective, in terms of choosing technology, I would only think about choosing the technology that is not very niche, let's say, because accessing developers and skill set that is needed to then develop the application or to support the application might be difficult or expensive. And it can be niche or it shouldn't be niche, or it shouldn't be the old technology that it's not that
popular.
Frequently used. These kind of things are pretty like needed for the business person to consider. I wouldn't recommend them to become a technical person and to find out all the details about different technologies, because they should either rely on the agency and think about the contracts and risks in different configurations, or to have someone in the team who is technical and will help them to navigate through the whole process.
Okay, so this is very interesting. So the technical advisor or someone that they can trust in order to determine that.
Yeah, because from like many examples, it's kind of impossible to make a business person to a technical person, and it's good that they have some sort of knowledge. If you are talking about mobile application, they know, at least where we are, and that there will be a server and there will be a database, so they are not surprised that we
are paying for something else.
Yes,
something additional.
That? or then when you are going through the whole process of the developing the application, they are not surprised that they see some sort of designs and they can click and navigate through pages or screens, and they are surprised that there will be further like a proper development to make it really useful and to make it an application, because I've seen and heard this kind of situation that they see some sort of storyboards and designs from UX UI team, and it's clickable. It's these technologies now and applications that allow you to present these storyboards and like the first designs are very flexible and can show all the interactions, and it looks like a real website or real application. And some customers were surprised that, but we have it. Why do you need to do something else with it?
And why do you need so much more money in order to do it? Yeah, that's a very good one. It's hard to convince people that sometimes they need to pay for something that it's totally in the background, that is not yet existing, because the designs are ready. So but this is actually one of my observations, that the breakthrough moment within workshop / let's call it the sales process, right, of services of companies such as ours, is the moment when customers can see. Until that, it's like in most cases, at least with business people, it's like, okay, we are talking about something, we are defining some user stories, roles, right? But it's still very vague and like, why do we need to do that? It's a discussion. So but when there is a moment when we show the wireframes or the high fidelity mock-up of a main screen or something, it's like, oh yeah, it looks nice. Yes. No, it's there. It's almost at your fingertips, right? Non-existent, but at your fingertips. But I'm curious about also your perspective in whole that picture, because not only you are the CTO of Samper, but you are also a co-founder. So you have the perspective of both worlds, which it's not totally unique because it happens a lot in startups. There is usually a founder that knows that, at least one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at least in many cases, maybe not most of them, but many. But what's that perspective like? What, from your perspective, was the most important thing for you at the beginning, apart from figuring out the tech stack, the backend, microservices structure, and so on, because that's probably more natural to you. Mm-hmm. From a business perspective, what was, in your opinion, most important in this preparation phase or during the workshop phase?
The MVP, as I said, the product that needs to have these main functionalities, and it allows us to deploy something that would be useful. So, of course, at the beginning, there's a lot of things. So it would be nice to have. This must be there, because otherwise the application will be just to have one function and it won't be that useful. So making the hard line between the MVP, the application, the version of the application that will be deployed as a first version, and between all the additional features that can be developed later. This is quite hard, because at the beginning you want to deploy something as quick as possible.
And something as
useful.
Yes, as useful as it can be.
Yeah. As wow as possible. So it's hard, because then you think, okay, if it will only do X, Y, and Z, it won't be that interesting. People will say, yeah, it's just only doing X. This is quite hard. And then through the whole development process, by adding extra features, and from the business part of the running a startup and developing a product, is when you start talking to your customers, showing your product, and you will have some sort of queries or opportunities to build something slightly different. But from the business perspective, it will cost quite a lot, and will kind of take the whole project towards slightly different direction. This is quite risky and can take quite a lot of time to make a decision. Oh, do we really want it? Will it take the main product somewhere from point A to point B, or it will be a different product? And is it a really business case? When you start talking to clients and start selling the product, you will hear a lot of, can you do X, Y, and Z? Of course, from the dev perspective, you can do everything, kind of. But from the business perspective, it will not put the product towards the way we want it. And when you start interacting with customers and getting feedback and queries, so we would buy it, but if it does X, Y, and Z, then it can take quite a lot of time and be quite risky for the product and for business and startups. Yeah.
This is super interesting perspective about the MVP, because a lot of people, and this is, I think, one of the biggest challenges when trying to convince someone to ditch certain features, is that the MVP and the minimum of the minimum is very important at the very beginning, because then you might need to do something else in a direction that you have not foreseen previously, and you may not have funds or money to do so. If you will build a super interesting product, but this is super interesting for you and maybe not for thousands of other people that will eventually use it.
Yeah, exactly. And also when, from my experience, I can say that, developing product without deploying it to production and showing it to the customer can be kind of endless. You always want to add something. Oh, we want to fix this. Now, I would say deploy as quick as possible, even if sometimes it's not something working properly, and fixing it, let's say, a few days later or just a day later. It's better than just waiting a week or 2 weeks until you deploy it. It must be consistent development, frequent deployment process, rather than just, we have this roadmap. After 2-3 months, we will deploy version 2. After another 6 months, we will deploy version 3. In kind of startup world and products that starting as an MVP, it must be like daily or weekly deployment process, because that's what we do. And it's, I don't say it's normal that something breaks, something doesn't work. You need to make sure that QA is in place before you deploy to production. It goes through all the stages, QA, dev, from dev, QA, staging, pre-prod, prod. But it shouldn't be like a long list of tickets, when then there is a risk of making a lot of mistakes, because you have to test in production a number of features. One feature can like break another one. So deploying small parts, it's way better, more fluent, and basically you can get feedback way quicker. So as you mentioned about the QA process and then some challenges with customers, it's always a case and it's a question from customers: do we really need it? So if we are running as a startup internal project, because we are kind of a customer and the owner of the product, we know that QA is important, and how important it is in terms of the whole project. But for many customers from kind of external world, not technical, QA part might be not even necessary, and sometimes they even want to be a QA team on the project, which sometimes is a very risky and dangerous.
And sometimes bad idea. So yeah, the quality is, I think, super important, because also hard to understand. Another part that is hard to understand sometimes for the customers, but a couple of hundreds of hours or dozens of hours on that. But why? Like, what do you need? Like, so you are not, so what you are trying to say is that you are developing something that is not working, and then you need to test it in order to see if this works. This does not make sense. So
exactly.
A lot of people from outside the industry has a hard time to understand that. I would like to get back to this, pivot that you've mentioned. So like, you are releasing an MVP, and then there is a market reality that you have expected to some extent, but then there is a surprise or a series of surprises. If you can share, if you have something on the top of your mind, what was the biggest lesson for you guys? Like, what was the thing that you found out after releasing the MVP, or a couple of weeks or months, in production, that you have not expected? Although I know that you've prepared a lot when it comes to analysis of the market, building the user personas and so on. But still, was there a surprise that you have not expected?
At the beginning, we were focused on the Stamper application itself as a product for all merchants, where they can create loyalty cards, schemes as a digital version in the application, and also replace existing paper cards with an application. And we were mostly focused on the loyalty in the application and the application itself for merchants. We were not really thinking about any kind of custom versions for merchants in terms of taking Stamper as a template and customizing it for a number of customers. We found out that we must be flexible in terms of allowing customers to create loyalty programs in Stamper application, and some sort of integrations with existing applications, because bigger clients already have existing applications, and they want to just add loyalty to the applications, and sort of marketing tools, because we also extended Stamper from being a simple loyalty application to be a marketing tool. The customer can interact with merchant can interact with customers with a number of different ways, through queues and, for example, lotteries. But being open to integrate Stamper, or taking part of the Stamper as an application, and create a dedicated application for some of the bigger clients, was that moment where we were thinking, okay, we need to be more flexible because bigger customers or customers with existing applications, it will be difficult for them to either switch to Stamper completely or to have both. These were business decisions from their side. We saw that it's quite difficult for them to make this decision, and being open for these integrations and creating dedicated applications with specific branding was really useful and helpful, and it allowed us to have this further conversation with them.
Okay, so not only the sort of product was changed to an extent, like feature-wise, but also it affected the business strategy to an extent. So the product strategy can be affected by the market realities. Do you have any tips as to what to look for, or that really is just a roulette when it comes to what you can expect, because the market reality is the market reality and it's different from each industry?
Market reality, I would say in terms of startups, because if you think about product for your business that will help you to automate some processes, it will be different because you really won't know what you want, and you're building it for yourself. But in terms of startups, when you're creating something that is innovative or something that hasn't been done before, you have the idea in mind and you will try to implement it as an app or as a website, depending on the idea. The reality is that from the founder kind of idea MVP stage, you are releasing it to the production and showing it to customers, and then you can find out what customers think, whether it's useful for them. You can prepare and do a research, try to show or explain a number of people what you are trying to build, whether it's useful. Of course, it needs to be done, otherwise I wouldn't even start thinking about building something that hasn't been kind of checked with a number of people. So there won't be that validation stage of the product. But as you said, from the early stage when you are discussing and talking about something, from this to showing them a real product, and when they start interacting with it, it's a totally different story. And they may say that, okay, we would use it, we would even pay for it, but this is just
saying
it's not a promise, it's not a contract. They are not paying actually for it. So from this stage to the stage where they will use it and pay for it, it's a quite long distance. And to figure out what you need to change and how to prepare your business proposition for them, the final, because it can change throughout the whole process. It's quite important. So that's why deploying something to production and showing and testing it with real customers, it's really important to do it as quick as possible.
Okay, so build an MVP, release as soon as possible, and verify with the market. This would be your recommendation.
Yeah. Starting from discussion and figure out that this is something that you want to do, but in terms of then taking from there, the stages, I would go through as quickly as possible.
Okay, and how about the platforms? Because we've started today with the mobile versus web and the differences and so on. Do you feel or do you see that nowadays you need to do something in a certain way, or you should avoid some other approaches? What would be your opinion on that? I mean, would you go for a web app first or mobile only? Because there are also a lot of hearsay on the market when it comes to this needs to happen, doesn't need to happen. What would be your recommendation?
It depends on the system, on the app or the product that you're building. Because if we think about the booking system for airlines or these kind of systems, It depends because it can be a system that will require you to have mobile application and website. And if we are thinking about booking system for airlines, for example, 90% of this whole system will be stored on servers and will be developed as a server-side application. And mobile application and website will only utilize the data that is stored there. So it will be just a presentation layer. So it won't be a huge cost. And if we compare it to the application that, as I mentioned before, can edit images, I wouldn't choose website because these days people take photos from smartphones, and having a tool that is already there and allows them to edit photos will be a good choice and a proper solution for them. So it all depends. Mobile is definitely evolving. A lot of people are switching from web interactions to mobile interactions. Sometimes even if it's accessing website through a mobile, because usage of mobile is growing rapidly. So the answer would be it depends. It depends on the solution, on the system that you're building, and the features. Because, for example, as I said, the editing images. If you want to utilize payments, fingerprint, and accessing the application quickly, it will be way more difficult to create something like this through the website. The answer would be, okay, the application, mobile application will be the best solution. If the sales strategy will show that for e-commerce, for example, the website will also get some sales through the mobile application, but through accessing the website. New customers will not download the application to make one purchase. They will make the first person to the website. They will not, make the whole thing. They will not download the application and register and have it just to make this one purchase. But for frequent users, mobile application will be way useful. They will store all the data, all the previous purchases. Application will have them to navigate through the products. So as I said, it all depends whether it's a mobile application only solution and it utilizes features of the phone, or it needs to be flexible and for systems that are created as a mostly server-side solutions. Building website and mobile applications will not be a huge cost.
Is there a way that you can check prior to starting actually development? What do you need? Are your users or mobile platforms? What are their behavior patterns and so on? Because at some point in time, you need to make a decision, whatever this will be. Web only for an admin panel and the rest only mobile because of XYZ, or you need to do a hybrid?
In terms of admin panels and interacting with the whole application or system, mobile apps for customers, my main point and the starting point for now would be mobile app for customers and website as an admin panel to do whatever it needs to be there. Let's say booking system or e-commerce, the platform that will be useful for admin people in the company. It needs to be web application run on laptops or desktops. If the customer that will interact from the admin perspective with the system will be, like in our case, these are merchants, sometimes that are owners of the small shop, and they don't have laptops and computers in the shop. So from the admin perspective, they might want to have a tablet version or mobile version of the admin panel to interact with the system. But for users, it would be like a booking system or e-commerce that I would consider both e-commerce, like a website version of the platform, and the mobile version, because, as I said, the first purchase might be done through the website, even it will be done through the device, the mobile device. But for frequent users, the mobile application will be way useful and way easier to access and filter through products.
Yeah, I agree. Mobile tends to also, like you said, to gain more and more traction. When I observe, for example, traffic on the landing pages or websites, like at least 50% of traffic is coming from mobile. Yeah. And so not being mobile friendly to an extent is just not the way to go nowadays. But mobile does not mean that you need to go native, for example, right? Okay, so that was, we've covered a lot of different topics ranging from, what to do and how to approach the MVP, what are the platforms that you should look for, the perspective of CTO and a founder of startup on on the market realities. Do you have any, let's say, an advice or anything else that you would like to share with anyone that would like to build their own digital product?
I would say just implement it, start working on it. There's a lot of people thinking about doing something, but not really ending up doing it. And before you, unless you develop it, unless you start working on it to show something as a product, to discuss this and really focusing on it, it will be just an idea, and you may be thinking, oh, I have a great idea, and I will at some point implement it, and it will be a great product. But without 100% focus on the product, on the development, it will never happen.
Okay, so all of the sleepless nights, all of the money spent, and all of the blood, sweat, and tears are worth it.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Thank you, Piotr, for being here today. I really hope that we will have the opportunity to speak again.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks. Thanks for watching. If you liked what you saw today, please feel free to comment, like, react, reshare in your social media, and let us know what would you like to see in the next episodes of Score Couch.